Hi everyone, this is Matt from drawingtutorialsonline.com with the topic video for how to draw a small portrait. Now, in this short topic video, I just want to reinforce some of the same techniques that I use over and over again when I draw a portrait. Currently, I am going through coaching with a few people, and they really want to learn how to draw portraits, and I'm reinforcing to them these same techniques over and over and over again because this is what has brought me success. I really was more of a portrait painter when I painted book covers because every single book cover that I painted was a portrait of the main character with a secondary item in the background. It could be a house, a landscape, a secondary person in a landscape, but most of the book covers that I painted were really portraits. And these techniques that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to try to really emphasize what works with the smaller portrait in this short video. Let's get to it. Let me not overtalk this. Now, I'm going to repeat myself, and this is redundant, but if you're still struggling with how to draw a portrait, this is the reason why. When I first start to draw a portrait, the thing that I do first and foremost is I start to frame big macro angles, okay? I'll start to do this type of thing around the head. I come on down, and I did this before I started to block in the tone, so to speak. I'll come on in, and I will do these bigger angles, okay? I'll get this angle, I'll get the angle of the nose, I'll come on in here, the two angles with the mouth, the chin, and then I'll just dive on into doing something like this. So that is my step number one. Now remember, I've repeated this many times before, but if you're new, the concept here is if we put a 12-inch ruler on the top of the model's head, what is the angle that the ruler is going? Angled down, or is it angled up? What is that angle? Is it a 45-degree angle? Is it a 70-degree angle? If I had to teach you one thing and one thing only pertaining to portrait drawing, this would be my number one thing. Now, we can come on down. I already had the shoulder established, okay? But what is even more important, two additional things that I love to do, because you can't just do the angles in a vacuum. They need to be incorporated with you using two other techniques. Number one, you look at this negative space, the negative space between the chin and the shoulder. So overlooked when people draw portraits. The other huge negative space that is always overlooked is the distance of the bottom of the ear to the top of the shoulder. In this particular case, the bottom of the ear is not on the outside of the portrait edge. It's on the interior of the portrait. So this little negative space here is really everything for me, okay? It helps me place the head onto the shoulders. Now, I mentioned two different things. I had mentioned that we use two different techniques along with the angles, and those techniques are measure lines. Again, nothing really exciting, nothing romantic, and nothing artistic, totally analytical. And most artists are creative people. They don't like to analyze things. They just like to jump in and create. But if you could just analyze a couple of plumb lines and one or two level lines, that would be fantastic. Now, one of the most important plumb lines for me is right below the brow, because that, for me, helps me figure out, is the eyebrow, is the eye area to the right of the nose? This sets the theme for the entire portrait, okay? And I could also do the same thing from the hair. And I'd say the edge of the hair here, what is right below it? Now I know that the eyebrow edge, the brow bone, is to the right of that. These lines here are everything to me when I'm drawing a portrait. And another fabulous thing that you can do in a small portrait is to pull the plumb line down from the edge of the hair, and you shade in the background tone. And in essence, what you're doing is you're using that negative space to help see the head. Okay, so this is step number one. I cannot tell you how important this is for me. Now, step number two, and let me leave that layer open, but let me go to layer two, is now what you do is you start to work the inside of the head. Now, if you wanted to be a portrait artist and you were struggling, I would ask you to just do this technique for like a month. Of course, you would draw the inside of the facial features and all that. But I would do, like, every day I would wake up and I would do just a page of these types of sketches, okay? Now, step number two would be to draw the interior angles. You could use organic line meaning curvy line. You don't have to do the angles if you hate that. I don't really draw with the angles anymore. Just with portraits, but not with the body. So let's say I wanted to incorporate some organic line. Sure, I could do that. I can start to use some curved lines, no doubt about it. And I would really just draw the shape of the hair versus the shape of the face. Okay? Extremely important to do that. Now, what do we have here? We have angles for the head and we have angles for the shape of the hair. And we also have shapes with a negative. The next most important thing, and this I would do with a curvy organic line. So I would start to draw down, curve around, look at the shadow and be very crisp with this. Now it gets a little confusing. I'm not going to lie. It gets confusing. Where do I see the line that separates the light from the dark? And I'm going to say it's right here. Okay, it's going to be different for everybody now. And I can go back. Now remember, I'm doing this with a very light line. I am not pressing down hard whatsoever. So I'm going to keep going and I'm going to go to this. I see a very crisp, clear line that separates light from dark. Now, when I draw and I'm doing this with a pencil, I'll stop right here and I say, okay, well, what's right up above that? And let's come down, and where is this? What's right above that? What's right below that? So I'm looking around at all of these little mini measurements, and this, quite frankly, should go right into the neck. That line that separates is everything. Okay? I can't tell you, in trying to practice drawing heads, this shadow shape is everything. Everything is everything. Everything counts. You have to be attentive to all of these details. And the biggest detail is that you make sure that when you do a small portrait, that you draw a small portrait with shadow. Okay, there must be some shadow shapes on this small portrait because that is how you are going to draw this quickly. If there's no shadow shapes, you are going to struggle. If you've been drawing portraits for 10 years and there's no shadow shapes, okay, fine. You know what to do. It's a lot of subtle value matching. But if you're learning how to draw and you're starting to do these small type figure drawings with a little head that's about 1 inch to 2 inches tall, what I've just showed you is everything to drawing a successful portrait.